This video is part 5 of the series of videos I have made on passage planning, and this is the last video in this series for passage planning. So I have given the links to the previous videos as well, so please watch those videos along with this video to gain a good understanding of how to conduct passage planning, especially for paper charts. Alright, so let's get started with this video. Today's video will focus on the concepts of constant radius turns, planning techniques, transits or using of transit bearings, leading lines and clearing marks, and the principles of course, execution and monitoring, updating and archiving and recording for the purposes of passage plan records and audits and so on and forth. All right, so let's get started. For constant radius turns, a mathematical method of achieving a smooth transition. When we say transition, we mean change of courses. So basically, when a vessel is required to alter course or change its course rather from one course to the other, a smooth transition is required to avoid any wastage of fuel or extra distance which has or heavy load on the steering systems. So for that, a constant radius turn is a pretty effective method of allowing that smooth transition. It is not used quite often, but it is quite effective if the proper equipment is made available, and often it uses the information obtained from the rate of turn equipment, which forms part of sometimes the gyro compasses. Rate of turn equipments are not available on odd ships. I am aware of that. It is available mainly on ships with which are greater than I think 50,000 gross tonnage, but sometimes it is available on smaller ships as well. So I don't know, but it will need some information from there as well. The constant radius turn is a simple ratio used to monitor the constant radius turn. The ratio is the speed of the vessel divided by the rate of turn, and the rate of turn information is what is required from the rate of turn instrument. Otherwise, sometimes you may also get it from the no, you actually get it from the rate of turn instrument only. So if both rate of turn and the speed are the same, the vessel will turn in 1 nautical mile. All right, so because if both the values are same, the division of both the values will result in the value 1, and that means the radius of the turn is required to be 1 nautical mile. The most critical part of the constant radius turn is the calculation of the wheel over point. So we have discussed wheel over point in part 2 of the series of videos I've made on passage plan. So please watch that video and understand what is wheel over point if you don't know already what it is, and I'll show it to you again over here as well. So you can see this is showing an example of a constant radius turn, which is a simple method of drawing as shown on the screen here. So the first step here is decide on the radius of the turn, which will also depend on the navigable zero and the formula that I've shown you on the previous screen, the previous slide rather. So once you decide on the radius of the turn, next measure this radius on the chart in use. For example, the last example we said it was 1 nautical mile. So you can see that the 1 nautical mile of radius is measured on the chart, and then using a compass from the waypoint, mark 2 arcs of 1 nautical mile, one on the old course and one on the new course. So you can see here the waypoint is shown as the diamond. So you see the diamond shape, that is the waypoint, and from the center of the diamond you draw the radius of the turn. For example, if it's 1 nautical mile, you draw 1 nautical mile towards the old course and 1 nautical mile towards the new course. All right, because from the wheel over position, once the vessel's helm is given towards turning the vessel towards the new course, within this radius of turn, the vessel should complete its transition and join the new course from the old one. So from the point of intersection of these arcs with the courses, inscribe 2 more arcs inward of the turn using the same radius, that is 1 nautical mile. This becomes the center of the circle of the constant radius turn. Alright, so from the intersection of these arcs with the courses, so you see the course line and the arcs where it is intersecting, you draw 2 more arcs, but you will draw it towards the turn, inwards of the turn, not outside the turn. And you use the same radius, this is 1 nautical mile, which is the radius of the turn that you have calculated. And wherever those 2 new arcs intersect, that becomes the center of the circle of the constant radius turn. The actual radius is measured from this point to the nearest part of the course line. Alright, now complete the radius turn as shown below. So you can see here the circle center is shown where the intersection of the two new arcs is there. The radius is measured. You can see the thick black line is the constant radius turn that is shown here, and the wheel over point is shown as a line as well as a firm line. That is the point from where you start to give the helm over towards the new alteration of course, but the vessel will smoothly transition from the old course to the new course over the line that has been shown as the radius of the constant radius turn. So that allows a smooth transition of the vessel. You can see here on the chart, if it's very clear to you, I don't know if it's clear to you or not, you can see it's been shown here that you have the waypoints available, and then you have the course lines, the new course lines and the old course lines shown here as well. You can see we have the waypoint 1 starting from waypoint 1 to waypoint 2 to waypoint 3, and this is an example where you can see that it's not, you don't have much depth of water available around, so you have a narrow margin of water to play around with. You don't want to go into the shallower depths of water, and in this situation the constant radius turn would be very handy for the vessel to transition from the old course to the new course. Alright, so here you can measure from the side, you can measure the constant radius turn, whatever it is, draw it. Alright, so the same procedure that I explained in theory before, I am showing you in actual practice on the chart. Alright, so that is how you will make the constant radius turn. So again, you can see here on the bottom right hand side of the screen, you can see how the constant radius turn is being shown, not only on the paper chart but also how you would see it on the radar with a head up mode. So as you know, with the head up mode, the 000 direction is considered as the heading of the vessel, and you can see how the vessel's turn on the paper chart is being shown simultaneously with the radar screen, so that you can get an idea. You may also use some parallel indexing techniques here. I've explained that technique before in the second part of this video, so that you ensure that with the constant radius turn you are also maintaining a safe distance from the land masses around. So the land masses are of course there in yellow, and you can also make it from the shallower depths of water that you want to stay away, but you can see how the vessel makes a smooth transition into the new course from the old course. The similar thing is showing on the north up mode as well. The north up mode of course refers to the vessel's course on the screen. So you see on the radar this time we are on the north up mode, and the same information is shown with reference to actually what course the vessel was doing and how it turned and how it smoothly joined the new course. Alright, and you can see here the blue line is showing you the parallel indexing. So you can see the blue line on the radar screen is actually the parallel indexing line, and you can see how the parallel indexing line ensured that you are always maintaining a safe distance from the land masses whenever you are turning. Alright, then we have the clearing bearings, or the clearing bearings are when no marks are available. A single charted and visually identifiable object can be used in a similar manner to make broad alterations of courses or change of courses. So if you have no marks available, just use the single mark, and you can have a range and bearing from that mark, which will give you indication of when the vessel should start to turn to join the new course. And the range ring, or the range, the range will mean a minimum range can be maintained, which will decide the safety margin to be maintained of the vessel as a distance from the island or a similar landmark. Then you may use transit bearings, which is a line on the chart where two identifiable objects are in line. It could be two lighthouses, it could be two racons, and two marks are there and they are in line, and again you can use that as an indication. So you can use that, you can take it as an indication that you keep taking the bearings, and as soon as you see both marks are in line, you may use it as an indication for any alteration of courses. The advantages of using transit bearings is that it requires no instrument to use. You can basically use the sight or the bearing of the sight, and you can quickly check the compass error as well, because you have the bearing marked on the chart, and you can take the bearings from your compass, and the difference between the two will give you the compass error as well. Then you have leading lights or leading lines shown on the charts as well, and the leading lines are marked by beacons or lights as indicated. And the track line is to be followed to ensure the ship passes clear of danger. Again, this is some sort of a transit bearing transit mark method here as well. Here you have the leading lights shown on the chart, which provides you an indication of the bearing as well that you can use as an indicator. So clearing marks are provided as well. The clearing marks are also used to ensure the ship is staying within safe areas, and it is very useful within a pilotage area as it does not need any kind of instrumentation. You can see the demonstration is shown, or rather how to use it is shown on the screen here. So you can see the vessel is using multiple courses to transit and navigate, and you have the lighthouse and the beacon as a clearing mark lighthouse to remain open to the left of the beacon. So you can see that you can use the lighthouse or the beacon as a head mark and make sure that you are keeping clear of the offshore reef that is there on the right side of your course lines, and always maintain that minimum distance within all these courses, and which will keep you clear of the offshore mark as well as the lighthouse ahead, or which is on an island. All right. Then we talk about the execution stage of the passage plan. So once the plan is made, discussed and approved, the execution of the plan can be determined. The final details need confirmation, including actual timing of the passage. Once the timing is confirmed, then the procedures used can be agreed upon. So I don't know whether you've seen my other videos or not, but my first video told you that how the passage planning is done in 4 stages. The first one is the appraisal, the second one is the planning, and we talked about the appraisal and the planning stage so far, and today we'll also talk about execution and monitoring stage. So here, once the planning is done, once the appraisal, all the information is collected in the appraisal section, the planning section, you lay out the plans, you take all the actions, and you calculate tides, use of parallel indexing, wheel over marks, clearing ranges and bearing. Once everything is confirmed, you then execute the plan in consultation with the ship's master and other officers, of course. But this becomes more accurate now because you also take into account the estimated time of arrivals, the traffic condition during arrival and departure, the destination ETA or the destination estimated time of arrival, as well as the tidal streams into account. Then you can call the master, prepare the pirate ladder, engage the tugs, and prepare for arrival of the vessel. You also need to carry out a voyage briefing, and this is normally done by the officer or the master who understands the passage plan very thoroughly, and it's necessary especially in pilotage waters. Sometimes if the pilotage waters are very long, if they are river passages, if they can last for a few hours, then it's important that all the officers are briefed on the delicacy, not delicacy, but on the situation, the delicate situation that the vessel will face, the sensitivity of the situation, because in river passage or in long pilotage waters, there is more risk of the vessel either running aground or the not sufficient depth of water being available, or there's higher traffic, there's fishing traffic. So all those things have to be briefed. This briefing is required when there is any variation in the routine running of the ship. For example, if you need to double the watches, maybe you are going through certain piracy areas where you need to double the watches, or you need to have the anchor party where you know that you will be going and dropping the anchor, or you will be requiring somebody to, especially in river passages as well, you may have to have somebody at the anchor station all the time because at any point of time you may have to drop the anchor, regarding pilot ladder rigging and also keeping the lines of communication open. So this will, of course, if more hours are required, more work is required, this may also result in fatigue. So hence personnel must be adequately rested prior to going on watch, particularly in pilotage waters and high risk areas. So people should be rested, people should be given enough rest because they'll be working more, and the rest hours need to be maintained. They should be fresh when they're on the bridge. They should be well rested and ready to do their job well, because these are critical waters, these are critical situation. Pilotage situations are very critical for the safety navigation of the ship. So you have to make sure that all the people are rested and they're ready to go. A basic principle is that the workplace is prepared and ready for the task at hand, and best done is by using a checklist system. So of course, for the last many years, we have the ISM checklist available. So make sure that you use the ISM checklist for the passage planning, for the arrival, for the departure, also for the pilotage waters. You have the pilot card ready, you have the information ready for you at hand, and all the officers are aware of the condition of the passage. The monitoring section is ensuring the ship is following the predetermined passage plan, as is a primary function of the officer on the watch. So once you have prepared it, once you have prepared the plan and you have executed it, The last section or the last stage of the passage planning is the monitoring stage, where you have to make sure that you monitor that the vessel is proceeding as per the predetermined passage plan, or if there are any changes to be required, or if there is any change in the circumstances, then everybody is aware of it, and that is also being noted in the passage plan. So make sure to ensure that the bridge team knows where the ship is on the plan. It is necessary to mark the spreadsheet that we have for a passage plan. So you have on the spreadsheet, as I showed in my previous videos, you have the waypoints, you have the position of the waypoints, distance to go, ETAs, courses. So you have to keep marking on those spreadsheets as well, and as well as on the paper charts if required, to ensure that everybody is aware of where the ship is, at what stage it is in during the passage plan. Some of the monitoring techniques is highlighting the waypoints and alert points. Alert points are points where cautionary advice is required, where vessel has to be on high alert. It could be areas of low depth, it could be areas where there are no-go areas or piracy infested areas, similar areas. Enter timings of each waypoint as you cross them, and monitoring functions also include fixing the ship's position, especially if you are in coastal waters or pilotage waters. It should be done more frequently. Monitoring the soundings using the echo sounder, monitoring the cross track error, so the vessel is not deviating too far from its intended track. It will deviate a little bit, but it should not deviate too far. Sometimes the master has certain rules about it, so if it deviates beyond the minimum cross track, then the master needs to be informed. Then in terms of collision regulations, you have to make sure that safety of a watch or safety of the ship is maintained throughout. Time management is done as well, because the officers on watch may need to be worked overtime, or they need to do extra time, so they have to make sure that everybody is rested, so are the lookouts, and communications and documentation is being filed thoroughly. For example, any communication with on the VHF, any communication with the VTS, port authorities, pilot, all should be logged down regarding the arrival of pilot, what time he arrived, what was the ETA given, what is the time of departure, what berth you are going into, what action you are taking with respect to other vessels to avoid collision. All the communication should be logged and documented. In fact, any communication, any activity that is taking place on the bridge during especially these critical times of pilotage and coastal passages should be logged in different logbooks, in appropriate logbooks. Finally, updating allows the continuous revision of the plan during the planning and execution of the voyage. This is critical as modification of the plan is a high probability, because like I said, once you depart a port and you are going into the next port, you make all the plan that you have to. You get information from all the publications, you make all the plan, but sometimes a situation may demand for you to change the plan. That could be because of unavailability of berth, where you may have to go into a contingency anchorage, or you may have received information about a wreck, a new wreck, or a military exercise or a navy exercise being carried out, which you may have been asked to avoid those areas. So you may have to change the passage plan. Sometimes you may have a TRS or a storm in the vicinity, because of which you may have to alter the course, and then your ETA and everything will change as well. So make sure any changes are noted in the passage plan, they are amended, all the officers are made aware of it. You document these changes in the passage plan, and make sure that the cautionary and alert advice is highlighted for the officers to see as well. So modification, like I said before, may be necessary due to delayed departure or due to commercial decisions, such as like I said, avoiding TRS or tropical storms. It could be due to an equipment failure, it could be due to a steering gear failure, rudder failure, main engine failure, or delays en route due to bad weather. ETAs may then require to be updated all the time. This is of course the master's job. The master will keep the agents of the next port and the company informed throughout about their revised ETA if any of these situations are encountered. In terms of archiving or recording, archiving of the plan on completion of a voyage provides the opportunity for a review and constructive criticism with the benefit of hindsight, and that recommendations for changes in future voyages made. Not only should you be archiving, recording, and documenting all this passage plan for future use and for review, but this is also a requirement of the ISM audit as well as the port state control. So you should know that when you arrive at the port, a port state officer or a flag state control may come on your ship and ask you to reproduce the entire passage plan from the last port of departure to the next port of arrival. So they may ask you to reproduce the passage plan, where you may have to show records of the courses drawn, the charts, the documentation regarding communication. So all that may have to be reproduced, otherwise they may flag it as a deficiency. So make sure you do the archiving and recording of all the activities. That also includes the course recorder, the echo sounder, or any other logbooks that are maintained. So make sure that you are document it, archive it, maintain a good record of it, so that you may be able to produce these documentation at any time during audit, or as well as for a review purposes, or to learn from it if you are going to repeat the voyage. So what all should be archived? Well, a list of charts for the voyage completed. Make sure that you note the number of the latest notices to mariners on board, a list of publications consulted for the appraisal of the voyage, spreadsheets and other notes that comprise details of the passage plan, waypoints, waypoint details, alterations made, at what point of time alterations were made, what was the date and time, instructions from owners, charterers, managers, and other concerned persons, that includes maybe shipping agents, as well as weather reports for the voyage, and voyage summary comprising of average speed done by the vessel for the voyage and duration of the voyage. And that's pretty much it. So I hope you watch all the 5 videos in the series of videos I have made on passage plan of a vessel, especially using paper charts. I will try and make a video on passage planning using the ECDIS as well. But give me some time and I'll get to that as well. But I'm sure you can use the principles of passage planning that you learn from these 5 videos into any to the ECDIS as well. The basic principles remain the same. ECDIS is just an electronic way of navigation, of course, but the basic principles of passage planning still remain the same. So let me know what you thought about this video, guys. I'll look forward to hearing your feedback and comments, and I try to answer you if you have any doubts about any of these points. All right, bye for now, guys, and all the best with your studies.